Hi, I'm Alex and welcome to Just the Tip, the Melbourne Cup edition. On today's episode, we're going to talk specifically about the Melbourne Cup. Melbourne Cup's one of my favourite races of the year, and you've got to just work out that big puzzle of where all the horses have drawn, the weights, the jockeys, the trainers, who's really targeting this race for big performance, who's got the right setup, the international form, where it lines up in with each other, and also with the Australian form. And this year, I've landed on number 6, Red Cardinal. Now, I know that this horse is drawn 24-24, but I reckon it's one of those key stays that will have a really good chance in this race. You get McAvoy on, who obviously won the Melbourne Cup last year, and he's absolutely flying. And distance races, he's a massive tick, in my opinion. You're going to get around that $20 to $1 mark, so I think that's great value. I know this horse will be trailing towards the back of the field, but I think that $20 represents a lot of value. Now, I've looked at the tempo of the race. You're going to have horses like Gallante, US Army Ranger, Cismontane right up there on the speed, even Max Dynamite, really punching it along. So obviously you're going to have a high tempo, and I think that will work in the favour of Red Cardinal here. I'm hoping that around the mid races, they start to slow up. Obviously, the lightweight of Cismontane probably takes it up. Gallante is probably going to be strong for the first 2400, and then we'll start drifting back. I think that's going to happen in this race, especially around the bend, like it did in the Caulfield Cup, where there's a couple of front runners that can't get the distance, will start packing up and will bottleneck it. So I'm looking for horses getting off the rails pretty early and obviously making quite a big run down the straight. Now, this last form line, the form line for this horse is really good. Last start was 5th behind Marmello. Obviously, the Marmello has franked that form, and it was a good win by Marmello, but that was really tempo related, in my opinion. Marmello went out in front and just held up the speed, made it really slow, and the Gallante went to him. But I did think that 5th was not too bad. I just think that the small break between two big runs and probably was looking just for a stepping stone into this, and was the favourite in that race. So obviously the market thought that the horse was going to run well. The race before that, the Melbourne Cup, was over the 2 miles, and it ran really well. It's on a firm, running 3:18.79, which is a pretty decent time. That's only a couple seconds outside of the Melbourne Cup record over the same distance. I know it was on a firm too, but it obviously shows the horse can run sometime. Sat wide and came on late. I thought that was really good. The horse that finished second, St. Michel, went over and won, came third in a nice little race at the Lonsdale Cup. And he beat Wall of Fire and Wicklow Brave there. Wall of Fire is one of the horses that a lot of people are getting on, and I just think that if the horse has beat it once, it can beat it again. Wicklow Brave is a really good barometer here. Finished 4th in that race, finished 4th 2 other subsequent lead-up races with a lot of other horses coming to the form line. So I'm just going through a little guide there of how many lengths in front of Wicklow Brave a lot of these horses were, to kind of see what the level is. Ultra consistent horse, and definitely a good way to put a measure on how performances were. So this one was up there, probably about a length or two less than a couple of the other ones, but I thought it was right up there considering he sat wide and had to balance up really quickly in a small straight. Going back 3 back, he won a Group 2 event in Germany. It was really good, saved up all the ground on the running rail. Probably the inferior part of the track. It looked like the whole field was coming off, but snuck up on the inside, and then probably just showed a bit more turn of foot than the other stays there. I know it was a Group 2 event, and just hit the line really strong. I thought that's its other 2 mile run. That's a good tick. It's a lightly raced 5-year-old gelding, which really fits into a good mould for a Melbourne Cup. Only had the 10 starts with 55 kilos, gets in a win with a winning weight. Draw is obviously poor, but will go back. I'm hoping with that mid-race slow up a little bit, Karen McAvoy makes a little bit of a move, gets to about 12th to 15th in that kind of area, has a chance to really attack them at the line. Probably not the best betting proposition considering how far it's going to get back, and it's really tempo related, but at that $20, I'm willing to have a bet, and it's going to be my on-top selection. Not too far behind, though, I have last year's winner, Almandin, who obviously comes out of the Hickman stable, the right stable, gets Frankie Dettori, who is really hungry for a win, and you're going to get about that $9-10 mark to find out what this horse has. I know that it goes up to the most weight that any returning winner has received since last year's Melbourne Cup, but I thought that its performances this preparation definitely justify its big weight. Last start was slightly below par, but it ran well with 60 kilos. I know it was the favourite, but it had to come from a long way back, and the mid-sectional data shows that this horse was, trucking in pretty well. Just kind of peaked a little bit. Second run at 2,500 as well, probably just not suited quite as much. Amelia Star was about 8 lengths in front of it at one point and just had the run of the race. Thought that run was fair, not probably as good as it was last year, but I think it was still very good pass by. Beat horses like Von Jamarski, who obviously won the Geelong Cup and was very close in Alexis, and Pentathlon, who was also very close in Alexis. You go back to two back ago, JRA, the electric turn of foot up on the fence there. That was just a big red flashing light. Obviously came into favoritism for the Melbourne Cup really short. It's drifted from that quote, but I still think it's good value at the moment. Loomed up along the corner and then just really was just too strong and carried a big weight that day too. And then the first up this preparation at the Valley was really big, obviously loomed up on the outside with a big weight again and hit the line really strong. So this horse I think is going really well. Is weighted probably not to win it, but to run a top 5 for sure. It's going to be a horse that gets a little bit further forward than Red Cardinal. So both will be coming from a very similar part of the field. I'm hoping that Almandin will be midfield back, and then obviously about 2-3 pairs will be Red Cardinal behind that. I think Red Cardinal probably has a slightly better turn of foot if they balance up together, but I think Almandin's brilliance in the last 100 last year shows that this horse is really willing to dog it out. So I think if it gets in between those two, it's going to be very tight, but I think that Almandin at the $9 is a bit of value. A horse I've got in for third and probably would have been my top selection if it had a better draw, just going to be a little bit hard from gate 23, is number 4, Tiberian. Now, it's opened up here at about $34 in the last markets here, and I really think it's about a 20 to 1 shot or better. Its only foul in its last 5 starts was in the Group 1, where it was hampered and went a little bit fast out in front, and then horse fell and it just got in a little bit of trouble and they pulled it out of the race. No dramas, no damage to the horse or anything like that. Just was probably a step too far too. That was a really high top-notch group 1 heading into the arc, and a lot of those runners probably had a length or two on Tiberian, who's probably more a bit of a grinder rather than a true out-and-out stayer. He won't blitz this field. If he does get there for the win, it will only be by a nose, a short half F, something like that. But it's a horse that loves to get into a bit of a dog fight. Its last 4 wins have all been by less than a length or two, and they all are big dog fights with another horse for at least 50 to 100 meters before it really either puts them away or just grinds out the win. He beat Talismanic, who obviously won it in America over the weekend, and I think that form line just keeps franking itself over and over. Cloth of Stars comes out of that same similar form reference, who was obviously second to Enable, which obviously is one of the better stays going overseas. And if you look far enough back, you can see the runs all tie in with Marmello and also Red Cardinal. So you can draw lines with all these international forms through a few horses. And I just think that Tiberian will map in an interesting position if it follows Marmello across. Now, I've got Marmello jumping and going forward. I think that will be obviously opposite to what it did in the Caulfield Cup, but that's where its racing pattern suggests it will go. And I think Tiberian, with a couple of gates further out, gets that real drag across. I've got it about 6 pairs back, about 3 wide, with a bit of cover. I think that's not a bad position considering the pace in the race. And if Livia Purcell can really just blend in at the right time, get into a good position, gives it a really good winning chance. I think at the $31 is well over the odds. For fourth, I've got in here Johannes Vermeer, who I think is probably the map horse for me. Gets a really nice draw, jumps well, will sit behind that hot tempo and gives it every chance. It's about a $10 shot right now. I think that's pretty rock hard where it should be. It's going to start between $8 and $12. So if you want to take the 10s, more than welcome to. That's not going to be a bad price at all. Its 2 runs in Australia have been really good. There's not too much data on horses third up in Australia. Oceanographer was the last one, who was about a $9 favorite, $9 horse in last year's Melbourne Cup, who ran a little bit subpar in that race. But obviously its 2 lead-up races were very good into that. So can forgive, but this horse has run really well so far. Its Caulfield Cup run was very checkered, got into the right spot, just couldn't quite get the runs. You could argue definitely that this horse could have won, or definitely would have run, or ran third, would have run definitely top 2 if it got a straight run. Of its last run, you can see that it's going to map in a pretty nice position right behind that speed, as I said. And I just think that at that price, if you're looking for a horse that's going to have every opportunity, then this is the horse to be on. It's just a quick little query on the distance. Never been up to 3,200 meters, but if it can stay or gets a really soft run along the fence, will be one of the ones hard to beat. One's hard to beat. Beautiful, and that's it for just the tip this week for the Melbourne Cup edition. I think that a few horses I wanted to mention with number 5, Marmello. Obviously, the form lines tie up really well with this horse, and obviously had a gun run in the Caulfield Cup. Will go forward and should give a big sight. I think if it gives a kick at the top of the straight, definitely one to consider in your numbers. I thought Rekindling was probably 1 year away. There's a lot of money coming for it already, 16s into 12s. I just think that it's probably a year from being at its top. It's probably just come out like they did with Bondi Beach 2 years ago to just give it a run and see what happens. But obviously it's one of the stables that you have to be really aware of. And I couldn't get everything in, but I've got number 20 Wall of Fire in as well, who obviously ties in with a lot of the form lines. Was beaten by Red Cardinal, who I have on top. but gets a little position in midfield with Craig Williams, who should give a really good sight there. So they're the horses I'm focusing on. I've got Red Cardinal on top, only slightly from Almandin and Tiberian. I think they're the three I really want to focus on, and Johannes for me, I think has every chance from its draw.